the Hutt chamber. Me Guppy, it's excellent improvement after having been here many years before with the changes you've done. So congratulations on that. It feels really spectacular. Onto the formalities, you'll see some emergency procedures. I was hoping on the screen. Over here. They were. Oh, okay. Has anybody not had a chance to be familiar with the emergency procedures? Please that. Give me just a moment, in case it's your first time seeing those. Okay, now let's proceed on to the Karakia. Feel free to join in as I recite it. Whakataka te hau i te uru, whakataka te hau i te tonga, kia makina kia ki uta, kia mātāratara ki tai, ihi aki ana te atakura, e tio, e uka, ohu, i hei, mōrio. Thank you. Now, apologies, we don't have any apologies, but just acknowledging we have Councillor Chris Parkin tuning in via the video there. So welcome, Chris. Now moving on to public comment, and we just have one speaker today who is Heather Blissett. So welcome, Heather. Keen to hear what you have to say.
Morena, I'm a Silverstream, so sit for a minute. Anyway, Morena, most of you know me here. I'm here to talk about the Akatarawa cemetery, and it's sort of really come up. I always thought I was going to be cremated, and there'd be a gust of wind, and my ashes would get up my children's noses, and I always said that I could say Mum was still getting up their nose in her afterlife. But my mother recently passed away last month, and she chose a natural burial. Now, I didn't really know much about them until she did it. And down in Blenheim, they have a natural burial site where so the family are actually completely part of the whole process from the time the person dies right through to the actual cemetery. So we wrapped her, we transported her, and we saw her right through to her resting place. There was also a trust down south called Farewell Trust in Karakia, and they provide a lot of resources. It's in the Mulga Sounds too, and they provide a lot of resources to enable people to with the process. And they've also got a respite place if anyone knows anyone that would like to see their days out in Mulga Sound or family. Now that's a little aside, but you've got an extension happening at Akatarawa Cemetery. Death is a natural process of life, and what they do is they don't bury them this deeply. Everything has to be organic, so she's wrapped in cotton and she was in a cardboard box. Cardboard coffin, that sounds really horrible. It was in a box. But also what they did is they got to choose a native plant, and she chose the cabbage tree because it's related to the Joshua tree, which was, she was born in California. So, and I just wanted to say on that note about my mother, about 20, 30 years ago, she applied for citizenship. This is just a little aside. And she actually asked the local iwi for consent. That was a voluntary thing, no one made her do it. And then while she was receiving her citizenship, there was a karanga that was heard in the audience that she didn't expect, which was really lovely. So I just wanted to acknowledge her as a person, and that's why I bring that here. And I think that's it. I don't know if anyone's got any questions.
Thanks for coming in, Heather, and condolences to you and the family. You must have read my mind, because that was going to be one of my questions in the new developments for Akatarawa Cemetery for future. And so it was it was a lovely experience for your mum.
It actually helped the transition. I think it helped the grieving, because she was never left alone. So we journeyed with her the entire way. And I think it makes it, and because it's so natural, I think there was no media areas, there was no undertakers, there was no excessive documentation. It was all really simple. And when you go back to the site, I took a photo the other day, eventually it'll be reforested, which is beautiful. So you won't be able to find your gravesite. It'll be on a GPS map, and they put a tiny little wooden mark so that the ruling is that everything has to be organic. They're not allowed to be buried with anything. So she had 100% cotton sheet. And the kaitiaki the staff that were there that day when we took her, because they do the only thing we don't do is dig. Sorry, I don't want to be too long. Is she said it's the most peaceful area in the cemetery. And eventually you can't even tell where she will be. If you look around, so I like the fact that they just returned to the greatest mother of them all, you know?
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Councillor Newell.
Yeah, thanks, David. So this is perhaps seems a crass question, but do you know what the cost comparison was?
No, but I could get back to you on that one. No.
Because we've asked this question here.
Yep.
And one of the comments was, don't expect it to be actually cheaper because more space is actually needed around the burial site.
No,
So
she was
that
placed
wasn't-
right next to somebody else. There was about 4 of them in a row. I didn't notice any obvious. That was through Marlborough District Council. So I could quite easily look up, because it's on their website. I believe, I want to say it was around 3,000. I didn't actually pay the bill, so I don't know.
Yeah.
And the coffin,
we could probably find, you just identify that because it'd be online, wouldn't it?
yes,
Yeah,
and that
yeah.
really was the only cost. The coffin itself is a voluntary one, so you went for a printed one. But you could have gone for a plain, or you could have made it yourself. So the actual cost is the plot.
Right.
But you don't have any of the other external costs.
Yeah. Oh, thanks.
That's all right. No, thank you.
Hold on, please, Heather. Heather.
Well, you've got a quick
Another question from Councillor Tyre. Don't run away, we're enjoying talking to you.
I'm not used to getting questions.
Kia ora, thank you so much for coming and sharing that. Just a quick question. Did you choose that site because of what was on offer there, or did you have a connection to that location? Like if that was offered in Upper Hutt?
That was the only location that offered natural burial site.
That's why you
I think
chose.
it's the only cemetery too in Marlborough.
Is that why you chose that location, because of the burial process? Or
She grew up in Glen. Sorry, when we moved over here, she spent the last 40 years in Blenheim. So that was, so the connection was there. But if you look at Wellington, the only 2 places that we have nearby are Makara and Otaki. So there's nothing available. In fact, I mentioned it the other day, and I had a couple of people. The only thing that we couldn't do is you couldn't pre-book her plot, but you could book a partner plot. So you couldn't book the first one, but you could book the one to go next to it. I know that sounds really bizarre, but it could be Marlborough. I don't know.
thank you so much for coming and sharing it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. That's the end of our public comment today. We'll move ahead to conflict of interest declarations. Does any member have a conflict to declare?
Yeah, I'll work with stuff for the meeting if you want.
Oh.
If you want to. I feel like you have to run away.
I take it there's nothing in respect of the conflict of interest in terms of additional declarations. What I intend to do is to bring forward the item on the Akatarawa Cemetery, just because we have a member of public comment in case the officer has any comments to make in respect of natural burials. But first of all, we can just deal with the minutes on page 5 of our agenda. Does any member have a question in relation to the correctness of the minutes? I take it there's none. So I'll move that the minutes of the meeting of the Hutt Valley Services Committee held on Friday, the 8th of March, 2024, be confirmed as the true and correct record. Do I have a second of that, please? Thank you, Councillor Carson. With the mover and seconder, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Contrary, no. I'll declare that carried. So looking ahead, if we could, understanding order 10.4, if we could please bring forward the agenda item on Akatarawa Cemetery. Brett, if you're able, and we'll move on to wastewater item following us. Thank you.
let's see, I think you all read the report, over everything there, and there's the, questions. Question about natural burials. Yeah, there's a trending, thing, and something that's definitely will be looked at in the new cemetery. And obviously in the detailed design, the areas are going to be identified, for burials in particular, but there's, natural burials have always been, an option that's, needs to be looked at. And I'm not sure about the terrain that's required. Mentioned about planting a tree. There's going to be a lot of areas where existing vegetation's already there. It's not like working in it. I don't know how it's going to look, but there's certainly going to be an options for that, plus other types of burials. So if anyone's got any questions on the paper on everything.
Thanks for you.
Yeah, on page 32, item 6. Consider and determine if the agreed apportionment of costs.
Yep.
And it says, if not, agree any changes to those apportionments. Now, surely that's not over to the working group to determine. Surely that is a council decision.
Yeah. Look, with the group, we'll go through and identify areas that need to consider, and any of those changes. I totally agree. It's not going to be put on us to make those changes. It'll have to come back to each individual council or to this council to agree to those changes.
So maybe the wording of that needs to be recommend instead of agree.
Yes, so which one are you talking about?
C.
C.
6C.
Well, this is actually in the agreement at the moment, so I can't really change that. It's in the agreement. That's what already been agreed to. But I'm telling you, going forward, we will be making recommendations for the committee to make decisions on.
People property on, they come on the council, whenever it's very.
Okay, maybe.
I wonder whether we could just note that expectation in that comment. Given we can't change it, I don't think we need a recommendation ourselves regarding that, but if it's just noted in the minutes,
Okay.
those comments.
Right.
Fine.
Yeah, and the second one is on 15. Additional surveying. And it said it was scheduled to begin the week 15 April and take up to 3 weeks. So I was just wondering if there's any update on that.
In preparation of a comment like that, I just managed to pick up about 10 minutes ago the program with the updates and where we're at. The survey is almost completed. John Price is taking over the management of liaison with the contractors, and this timetable we presented the next time we come through. So our lines up here, the survey is due, well, determination, by the end of second or third week of May. Second week of May, it's going to be finished that. And then the detailed design structure and all that's basically done by August. So we are making progress, but it's very, very slow. It's frustrating, but we'll get there.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Shulman.
Thank you. I just, on page 32, paragraph 9, I'm just lacking a little bit of understanding about what this paragraph actually means. And apologies if I've missed something because I wasn't here for the last meeting. So this discussion's been held about shared service model currently for cemeteries. Isn't that what we currently have? What I think I'm reading is responsibilities for the operation will be managed by Hutt City Council.
It is currently, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So this paragraph refers to a new business agreement where Hutt City Council will run it all?
Well, this will be part of the review. I mean, it may not be the case, I guess, at the end of the day, if we change that. The agreement is written as such that, Upper Hutt is responsible for the day-to-day operation of the two cemeteries. As part of the review, if that's looked at, and there's a requirement or desire to change it, or maybe that's something that's not quite working, then we'll put that up as an option for discussion.
Oh, so still to be discussed and under review.
Yeah.
I just thought we need to have somebody here for our people.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, everything in there, this was done, what, 15 something years ago. And I think Bruce and I are the only ones that have a bit of history, I guess, on how it was put together and the reasons for it. But when you look at it now, there's a lot of questions asked. Well, why did you do that? Why is this in here? And it's like, okay, we have to think about that. So there's a lot of things that need to be reviewed.
Thank you.
I guess one of the issues I had here in the original agreement was something about a performance. Our performance is measured. I think it's the first one, assessment by Upper Hutt of cemetery services. Assess performance by Upper Hutt. So there was supposed to be an assessment done over the years on our performance on the cemetery, and that's never been done. And I'm just not sure how going forward that's going to be implemented, or if it's required. It's, I mean, obviously Hutt City haven't had any concerns, or, you know, there's been no sort of feedback for you, what's going on, why are you doing this? Yeah, sure, we've had a few incidents at the cemetery that we've dealt with, but that's part of the that's the day-to-day operations sort of thing. So I'm not really sure how that's going to pan out. There's a whole lot of things like that.
Can I just ask a further question to that? So who currently manages burials down at Taika Cemetery? Because there's still
Hutt City through Downers, correct? Yeah, Downers a contractor.
okay.
Yeah, I had a very similar question on that. So is paragraph 9 saying that there's a conversation happening to develop a proposal that Upper Hutt would now run Taika Cemetery? Is that what that is saying? Rather than us having our own cemetery services outside the Downer, you would just look after the whole valley?
Yeah, Arthur mentioned one of the things he would like to see would be possibility of Upper Hutt taking over the responsibility for managing the Taika Cemetery.
So that's what paragraph 9 is talking about.
Yeah, that's what paragraph 9 refers to.
Cool. Awesome.
So, I mean, to do that, I guess Upper Hutt would have to agree to do it. Yeah. And implications, the cost and how it's going to be run. It's a possibility. It's been talked about before, maybe 20 years ago. And I think we did provide some cost to Marty Greenfield when he was there. But Hutt City standards were completely different to Upper Hutt, so the price that we submitted was way out of the ballpark for Hutt City and didn't go any further. So not sure how that's going to.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Now I've got Councillor Carson.
Yeah, just still on para 9, page 32 about the shared services model. Why do we have to have a business case? Why can't we wrap it up into the review? And if the response there is saying, well, it's not in the original agreement to do that, why can't we move a motion this morning to ask for that to happen? I don't think there's any need to have a detailed business case or a business case as such. I think that's going overboard. It's a simple matter of looking at it and what are the pros and cons of it, and included in your recommendations as part of the agreement review. Because, you know, things will just happen glacially. There's an opportunity to actually take a proactive approach and do this. I know what will happen. I mean, this will just languish into 225 if it's not actually treated proactively.
I do know there's a completion date for the review specified in paragraph 7, July this year.
3 months, yeah.
That could be easily changed, or it can be an addendum to say that in addition to that review for completion by a certain date, to come back with additional recommendations on a shared services model by a certain date. In other words, just to get, I mean, because this will just hang there, I know from experience, this will just hang there unless there's a recommendation from this committee to actually action a point.
I'd be quite open to that myself, really. Comment from officers further.
Yeah, look, I don't see it's gonna, drop any, it's not gonna drop down in the cracks, I don't think, because the push is coming from Hutt City, so, sorry, the request is coming from Hutt City, so depends how committed, they are to doing it. I'm a bit relaxed about it, but,
Just go ahead and we'll see.
Okay, so I suggest to make a request for officers of the two councils to come back by November 2024 on options of the pros and cons for the development of a shared services model for the management of the Hutt Valley cemeteries. On those lines.
I'd be prepared to second that. Oh, beg your pardon. Councillor Parkin online, you've been waiting a while for a question. Let's just hear that and we'll come back to the motion.
Kia ora. So just a question regarding point 5 in terms of the other issues that need to be considered. Is that also going to include climate change issues, and both in terms of the mitigation that's available and also the potential from methane emissions?
climate change, I picked up that, I didn't hear the last bit.
Methane emissions.
Methane emissions. I don't really know how to answer that, to tell the truth. But obviously when there's efficiency made through carbon neutrality up there, that will be reported on. I'm not sure an issue with methane emissions material. I'm struggling a little bit there with it.
Perhaps I can just suggest when the detailed designs are coming back that those two, a comment be made in relation to those two matters.
Yeah, there was something I raised at the last meeting that all the Hutt City Council papers that come to us have a climate change considerations heading, and any considerations under there. And at the last meeting, we did ask if that could be included going forward. So for the next report, it'd be great if we could have that. If there's no considerations, and simply just say there's no considerations, but at least then we've got the assurance you've at least considered it in writing the report.
Any recommendation on to vice council? Any recommendation on to vice
Yeah, and it's just mentioned that any recommendation would have to go up to both councils for approval. So I think that's would be the expectation. Checking with officers, should we go through the rest of the questions yet, or should we address the recommendation that's Councillor Carson's correct order of business? Or let's just take all the questions and then we'll come back to that. So I think it was someone over here, Councillor Shaw.
Sorry, I apologise if this has already been mentioned and I missed it, which is possible. I just want to confirm that natural burials are part of the review process coming forward.
Yeah, that and any other religious or I don't want to say denominational requirements will be all part of that public consultation process once the areas and we know what we're looking at, what we're in for. But natural burial won't be forgotten.
Okay, thank you very much.
Just scanning the room, we've had a couple of questions. There doesn't seem to be any more. So let's return to the recommendation from Councillor Carson's, and does anybody need it to be read out again?
Could I just ask about the November date? So this would be not, how would that fit with our timetable for this committee, which only meets 4 times?
November we meet. 22nd of November we meet.
Oh, okay, all right.
But we also meet in September. The review we finished in July.
So it would come to the November, so Councillor Carson's would come to the November meeting. That
Like
intention.
Yeah.
That's fine. Let's just have the recommendation again so everybody's clear. Thank you.
A request for officers of the two councils to report back by November 2024 on options for the pros and cons for a shared services model for the management of the Hutt Valley cemeteries.
We just put on the 1st of November.
1st of November, yes.
Okay,
No, that report then goes to the 22nd of November committee.
well, I'm prepared to second that. And any discussion on that particular recommendation before we put it?
My only discussion, I was going to move a motion to say that the full review comes back to this committee for us to consider it at that November meeting, but you want to kind of more just talking about the shared services.
Yes.
So could it be more along the lines of that the full review comes back to this committee at our November meeting, including the option for shared services?
There's a big gap though for the completion of the review in July till November, when you've got a meeting in September.
We could do, if officers think they can do it time in September, we could do September, but I want to make clear that the review will come back to this committee. If you're keen to see the shared services be part of that review and officers can do it by then I just want something writing saying it's going to come back to us to sign off to go to the committee councils in time to do our annual plans next year.
Can I ask Brett, are you able to do it for the September meeting, the shared services business part of it?
Well, we're aiming to do the review on the by in July. So this once that's sort of nailed, I mean, this can be discussed at the same time, and it's all about financials, cost, and what's involved. So I think it'd be done.
So through the chair, we're Upper Hutt City are committed to doing this. I've had a quick chat to Bruce on the side, and while Arthur isn't here, so I'm just mindful of speaking for him, but I mean, Hutt City are interested in this, so we think as officers we can get that work done to report back.
I'm willing to change that to September. And September or something like that.
Could we reword the resolution opposed to include the review and what you've asked for in relation to shared services?
Just, if I may, just to note that, just to point out that there is, in terms of the agreement, correct me if I'm wrong, Brett, just so the committee is okay and the councils, that the review needs to take place no later than 3 months from the commencement. So as long as you're comfortable that we are tracking along on that, the review is taking place, they will be coming back to September.
Okay, let's just to be 100% clear, let's just hear what we're voting on and then
Request for officers of the two councils to report back by 1 September 2024 on the full review and on options for the pros and cons for the shared services model for the management of Hutt Valley cemeteries.
I'm seeing nods, so it's moved by Councillor Harrison, seconded by myself. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against no. I declare that carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, I beg your pardon, and we can return to the recommendations on the table, just that we receive the Akatarawa Cemetery update report. I'll move that. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Griffiths. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against no. Thanks. Right. Getting back in terms of our normal order of agenda, we're picking up item 6, which is the wastewater joint venture update. Sodgens, strategic advisor from Hutt City Council, speaking to the item, but we also have our expert advisors from Wellington Water Limited. I won't read out all the title, but we've got Steve Hutchinson, Lee Johnson, Jeremy McGibbon. I think that's the full crew. So welcome. Bruce, anything to say?
Thanks, Tony. I've just got a couple of comments and then I'll pass over to Jeremy, who'll talk a little bit about the communications plan. So just wanted to point out in terms of paragraph 14, that table there. So that table on page 16 is a calendar year. So each of those are calendar years. So for the 2024 year, that's only for the first 3 months. So just be aware of that. The second thing I wanted just to touch on was in regard to the wastewater pipe under State Highway 2. So Wellington Water has, since writing this, they've undertaken an assessment of that pipe, and what they can tell us is that there are no cracks in that pipe, and so the likelihood of an imminent failure is very low. Nevertheless, they are working on two fronts. Firstly, with Wakakotahi in terms of a contingency plan if there were an issue, but the other one is working on a plan to actually renew or repair that part of the pipe. And they hope to get back to us next week in terms of what the costings are looking like. So this is something that I'll be reporting back to Hutt City Council, and I expect that it'll be reported back through to this council or to other Hutt City Council as well. But there are ramifications in terms of what that means for the 10-year plan, because this is something that is going to need to be carried out urgently, and we'll need to look at how that's going to be funded. They're the only two things that I wanted to talk to, but I'm going to pass to Jeremy just to talk a bit about the communications in respect of the odour and the plant upgrade.
Good morning. Yes, so we've submitted a communications plan to council, to officers. We've also, in that plan, there's quarterly meetings with the community, updating them on what's happening with the odour work at the plant, to keep them informed as we progress. There's also, as work is carried out at the plant that could impact on odour around the plant, we're proactively communicating that with the community, to the interested parties that have asked to be kept informed, as well as via our website. There's also ongoing every month newsletters that are going out to people that are registered for them, and they are also updated on our website. The other thing I just wanted to just provide an update is on the work with effluent compliance. I've spoken to the New Zealand supplier today, and they've informed us that they're actually air freighting all of the equipment that we need for the UV electromechanical work. So they're, I guess, expediting that as quickly as we can get it. We're quite concerned with the ongoing disruption that we're seeing across our portfolio projects, that the disruption from the Suez Canal could impact the delivery of that. So that was good news to hear this morning. Just any questions?
Just a comment, the comms seems to be working. I'm getting emails from you telling me about what's going on there, so thank you. That mine worked.
I just have a question in relation to the wastewater pipe on State Highway 2. You mentioned there's no cracks. Could you just describe what's the state of affairs with the pipe itself? What is the very poor condition? What specifically has happened there?
It's internal corrosion from hydrogen sulfide, basically. So the inside of the concrete is the concrete's fallen away, and it's got back to the reinforcing steel, which is in the middle of that concrete pipe. So the structural strength is effectively diminished.
Thank you. Councillor Shaw.
And I've got a question about that particular pipe. How close is it to Riverlink and any of the upheaval surrounding Riverlink and upheaval?
It's just at the northern end of the Riverlink works area. So one of the issues being looked at is whether the work can be undertaken before Riverlink set up and start, or whether the work would be undertaken by that Riverlink alliance. So it is within the Riverlink.
Any further question? Councillor Dyer.
Cool. Yeah, firstly, thanks for the public meeting you guys hosted. I know the public really enjoyed it. I would encourage anyone from the committee to come along to the next one. There were lots of questions of officers, but also of council. In the paper, it notes that it's paragraph 14, no formal non-compliance notices received from GW at the time of writing this report. Just wondering if anything's come through since then.
No, nothing's come through since the writing of the report.
And then I had a question on the backup power supply. It was first reported to this committee January 2022 that we're having issues with the power supply. I guess the paragraph 19, I'm a bit alarmed by the timings in there. The current high level completion date of this project is now June 2026, and it's in the very early stages of project planning. This has been on our radar for several years now. I'm just a bit concerned that we're in the very early stages of project planning when we've known about it for several years. I don't know if you've got any comments, or is this a different issue that?
So it's surrounded funding is my understanding. So the planning requires funding as well, because it's detailed plant planning across the whole plant. So we now have funding in the proposed LTP for the next 2 years, and so that we will get underway to deliver. It's understood what is required, but the detailed planning and how it integrates with the current plans, current plant componentry is what's required out of that.
And then paragraph 6 talks about a review between Wellington Water and Veolia due by the end of April. Just wondering if you received that report, and if you've obviously it wasn't in time to be included in this report, if you've got any summary of that.
I followed up with him, we just waited to get back to us.
Oh, yeah, got the actual.
No, it was due end of April, and I haven't seen it, so I followed up again.
Yeah, I'd probably just add that they have, it's Veolia's plan. We requested more detail. I think they understand what they were wanting to deliver through that plan, but it wasn't clear to Wellington Water, so we've asked for more detail and some target delivery dates as well, which is difficult in the process environment, but that's what we've requested.
Yeah. And in paragraph 4, it talks about the plant continues to be non-compliant with ethical quality due to high levels of fecal coliforms. Of this, some of the paragraphs been included in previous reports to this committee for some time. I just hadn't appreciated how bad this is until I got the comms newsletter that went out to the Seaview Interested Parties group, saying that 80% of the time we're exceeding the limits for bacteria. For me, is a lot more alarming than anything we've ever seen in any reports. I just wonder if going forward you could maybe provide some sort of graph or historic nature of how is it getting bad, is it getting worse, is it going off the charts? It's without any numbers. Previous reports have said we're currently non-compliant for the period because there was one power outage and there was one unknown discharge. And for me, that's like, okay, it's one of the event. Whereas seeing this in the newsletter, 80% of the time we're breaching our consent is a lot more alarming than a one-off event because the generator didn't kick in for a couple of minutes. It's just a bit of a discrepancy there between what's in the newsletter and what's in our reports. But for me, having now known this is a lot more alarming than I've previously.
The two events are slightly different. So there's an overall UV treatment system has diminished. The performance of that part of the treatment plant has diminished, and so what we have or Veolia have a program maintenance work plan that they do, replacement of lamps and that sort of thing. So that was carried out last year. That didn't improve. It did improve the performance of the UV unit, but it didn't improve it to the point where we were adequately treating fecal coliforms coming through all of the time. And so the components that Jeremy was talking about earlier are different to the lamp replacements. They're electromechanical switches and that sort of thing, which should improve the performance to the point where that compliance is really gained, more regularly gained that way. Yeah.
And the issues of the short-term power outages where it's out for like 12 minutes, that's more the power supply
That's
issue.
The power supply issue. Yes, correct. Yeah.
They're generally shorter duration.
Yeah. And so it's usually a one small event that triggers cool, we're now not compliant, which is one of the previous reports that sort of see like this is one off event, it was 11 minutes, power generator was out and it wasn't treated fully. And for me, that's like, okay, it's a one off event, we're working on the power supply stuff. But for just the UV systems, as you explained, I don't think we've
so last summer there was issues with fecal coliform compliance as well. Over the summer period it tends to get worse, so we put some steps in place to resolve that last summer. The program maintenance occurred for lamp replacements occurred over this year, but it hasn't improved the performance of that component of the plant to the point where we're regularly getting.
Yeah, I think there's been a gap between, because obviously we've been reporting on those UV lamp replacements saying, yeah, this will fix it. there hasn't been an update until really this new thing, and the residents that actually has failed, it's not gone as good as we want. We're now working on the next plan. Obviously, you provide that information to us now, but I just think the report kind of does get into that detail, but obviously the residents got it in the newsletter rather than us, but yeah, but going forward, I think this is obviously odor issues. I'm feeling confident now we're on top of that, but this one here I think is almost more important than the odor issues.
It's yeah, I mean, we obviously take effluent compliance as a highly serious matter, so we're working as fast as we can to take that next step.
Cool. Awesome, thanks so much.
Councillor Griffiths.
I just wanted to ask whether or not, I know we were breaching and we were getting notices from GW around those breaches. Is there
The odour? Yes.
any update on that, please?
No, there's no update. We've requested a hearing on so that was for the abatement notices. So there's hasn't been any further action as far as I'm aware.
Mr. Carson.
Yeah, so at the last meeting, Bruce, I gave you a few brickbats. So this meeting, I'll give you a few bouquets or bouquets according to the sitcom. So congratulations on the acre that you've presented to us in response to those recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carson. Just a final question for me. I noticed with interest, Councillor Dyer attended that community meeting, which I thought was an excellent thing to do. I think given the interaction we've had with the community and the kind of seriousness and heartfelt concerns they have, that was a great show of support from the elected members. So I'd like to go to some of the meetings coming up, if that's possible. I assume it is.
Yes.
So can it just kind of get in my diary somewhere? Like I get an email saying, Tony, come. The next one's on whatever date. Welcome to come along. I'm not sure if any other councillors would, but I think me as chair at the moment for this year, we could at least to show up. I can do with any others who are interested, but I think it's quite important.
I think an invite for the whole committee would be useful. I didn't get invited, I just saw it on Facebook, but I'll come along, listen to the back and just kind of listen in to what people have to say and end up.
We certainly appreciated having you there, so thank you. Yeah.
The JV committee here have all been added to the interested parties list, so you should get.
I just get it through.
It should be in the news.
But we'll ensure you're informed as well.
Thank you very much.
What I've asked Wellington Water to do though is to get that newsletter to you a day before it goes out to the public. So in future, you should get it 24 hours before, so that at least if you're rung up, you can, you know what's happening.
That is happening. Yeah.
Good. The next meeting is probably going to be programmed after the councils have determined their LTP, so we can report back and confirm that that's a tick off, and then just giving an update on where things are at with the various projects. Sure. So probably in July sometime.
Oh, Councillor Newell.
Yeah, could we just go back to the wastewater pipe running under State Highway 2? Just when you read this, I don't sort of get the full understanding, I don't think, of what the implication of this is. Does this mean that if the pipe had to be renewed, we are talking about closing State Highway 2, or what do we actually mean by this?
There are a couple of techniques where you can replace a pipe without digging up the road. So one of them is putting a spiral wound PVC liner in.
I was wondering about that. Yeah.
Otherwise, we've got boring machines that can go under. So because it's State Highway 2, that would be a first consideration.
Yeah.
To do it using one of those methods. So it is possible to do it without disruption. I guess the concern is that it would, fail before it was replaced, which is a very hard thing to estimate. We've had some reassurance from our report, as Bruce talked to, but there's no guarantees from the engineers involved.
So, Chair, bearing in mind what you now know, what might be a timeline for actually reducing the risk?
Look, I don't have a timeline from the team yet, so I can't say. It'll be months, rather than weeks.
So months rather than years.
It could be a year before it's done. We've had similar situations before, which is not the first corroded pipe. We had a similar one in Wellington, which took close to 12 months by the time everything had been arranged, the pipe had been repaired. But yeah, I don't have a timeline from the project team at this stage.
Councillor Carson?
What's the worst case scenario if the pipe failed? Would there be a big geyser or the road gets blown up or what?
The pipes are gravity pipes, so it's not under pressure like the water pipes, so it wouldn't blow up. From experience, we've seen a couple of the road service would generally slump like a sinkhole, and then the contingency plan is keeping wastewater flowing around an alternative route. While that section got
also about having cars at different route. Yeah, I just thought, talk about risk, the black swan event in terms of, the real risk of actually happening. I mean, that's Paddy's law, isn't it?
It tends to be a slump rather than spectacular.
So will I be noticing any difference on State Highway 2 then if there's slumps? Right.
The Wellington Transport Alliance people have assured us they'll be keeping a close eye on it.
Looking to the future, though, there is a further issue, I suppose. When the very high criticality assessment condition rating was undertaken as program of work, there was around 150 kilometres or something of pipe that was looked at as part of this, and a lot of it was to do with the main Hutt Valley wastewater pipe, and that was deemed to be in poor condition, and that picked up the fact that they couldn't actually look physically at this particular section because of where it was, and so there was it was noted by Wellington Water that when the Riverlink project started, that should be one of the first things that was looked at to see whether that needed to be replaced. But the question remains that, a lot of the rest of it on either side of this section is in poor condition. So something that will be coming up for replacement. Do you have any ideas, Steve?
Well, it's partly timing and funding. I mean, the 1,300 metres in grade 4 is mentioned in the attachment. So the team starting up looking at how that will be replaced logistically, but say current plans, they'll do their concept design and then put it on hold for a few more years while the more urgent section gets prioritised.
Councillor Griffiths?
Can I just ask a question continuing on from that? So the lifespan of these concrete pipes with the damage that you're talking about, I presume we have a metric on how long these pipes will last for, or is this we're learning as we go because it's the first time they've ever failed?
There's a general assumption for accounting depreciation purposes and asset management that it's roughly 80 years, sometimes 100 years for that material. This one, because of the age of the sewerage and potentially some turbulence there, is only just over 60 years old, and it's that particular section under the crossing has reached the end of the engineers will call it serviceable life. And the section upstream is that poor condition grade that all it's done is replaced within the next 10 years. So the very poor, the grade 5, all it's done is replaced within 3 years. The poor is replaced within 10 years.
But just continuing on if I can. So does that change the way we're thinking around this network in the future? I mean, if we're having this sort of a catastrophic downgrade, at over 60 years, is it something that we're going to have to look at, changing our budgetary requirements to cover off the rest of these pipes that have kind of failed earlier than we were expecting?
Yeah, there is a significant issue there with renewal of pipes as they come to the end of their life. There's a large proportion which will be at the end of their life within the 30 years infrastructure plan horizon.
my point was more that if we're starting to see catastrophic failures at 60, rather than expected 80 or 90, is this something that's going to crop up a lot more, or do you think this is a one-off, or is this a?
It's not a one-off. Got another small section in Seaview, which is slumped and collapsed, but it's not a critical pipe. So it's not a one-off by any means.
No GST.
Thank you. Well, thank you, everyone. There's a lot of big issues, and you've given us a lot of good information up to them too. So thank you for that. And it's going to be a challenge moving forward, but thank you for your efforts. Let's just move to the recommendations. I'll move that the committee receives and notes the information in the report. Have a second, please. Mr. Carson. All those in favour? Aye. Those against? That's carried. Thank you. Okay. Now, moving on to item 7 on our agenda, which is the update on Silverstream landfill and resource recovery. It's on page 25. Jeff Roberts, Waste and Resource Recovery Manager from Hutt City, to speak to the item. Anything to say there, Jeff?
Kia ora. Just noting on the capital development front, we're going to bring forward a little bit of capital funding from outer years. It's already budgeted for in our Hutt City LTV, just to make sure it's available to continue the development. It's accelerated at the moment. On top of the demand for airspace, so that's broadly covered in the paper, but I just want to update that. It's something that the Hutt City CEO has just approved.
Thank you. That's good to hear, because it is, looking at the graph, it's a little bit unnerving to see how fine we're cutting the margins, and we have been informed about that fine margin before. So this is good news. Any questions from members?
Obviously, the new voucher system's only going to be running a few weeks. Just wondering if you've got any feedback on how that's going with diversion rates type stuff.
Yeah, I don't have the exact voucher numbers on hand, but we've certainly seen an uptick, and we've been working with waste management and their concierge function. Been taking that into consideration more and really promoting the voucher to people. Earthlink obviously are now working towards putting more people up there with a specific focus to divert materials and provide the vouchers to people who do so. So I know the numbers are significantly up from where they were tracking last year, for example, and when the voucher system was launched. So, yeah, we're talking 2 or 3 times the rate already, just with encouraging the contractors that we work with to really promote it.
So are they based in the new awning, like stop cars, sort of having a discussion with people while you're dropping? Oh, you can put it here.
That's right. Yeah. So the whole structure was designed so that the traffic to the transfer station comes through there, and there's an opportunity to interact with people and sort of assess their loads if they're interested in separating out their recoverable goods.
Follow-up question if I can. On the airspace stuff, we've seen, I don't think it's in this report, but there's been reports to Hutt City Council that are a bit more alarming about how quickly we're filling up the landfill. Obviously, we have this graph on page 30 that sort of shows the airspace utilisation. Is it possible to include sort of more historic data of how we thought we were tracking versus how we're doing? From this, it's kind of a lot more looking forward, which is obviously very important. But also this graph's quite technical. I think I understand what it's trying to tell us, but I guess for me, it would be good to have a regular update of how we're tracking in terms of the landfill getting full.
Yep.
Yeah,
sure.
Hard to get it from the report.
Yep, we can get more detail on that to this committee. Yeah, it's sort of sort of ways of showing this information, obviously, and like some more historic information.
Yeah, just something that shows that easy for the committee and the public to understand how we are filling up the landfill quicker than expected.
Yes.
Sometimes the words are extremely alarming that we're filling it up, it's going to be full next week. And then others are sort of about 2027, and then there's some bit more clarity around that would be really useful.
Sure.
Cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome, thank you.
My question was around stats coming from those voucher or coupon systems that you're running. We got a pretty good capture of the data that will come back as it builds.
Yes. Yep. Coming out of the weighbridge, and yep, we can provide more reporting on that as we can.
Just around that diversion via this mechanism, just to see.
Yes. Yeah, we're doing some data analysis on that at the moment, so we can bring that back as part of this.
Just like this, we don't need it as a complete line to keep going with. I think just as it begins and see how much of an explosion you've had.
Yeah.
Very good, thank you.
Yep, certainly.
Agree with that.
We're the end of the questions, so we move on to recommendations in the report. Happy to move.
Sorry, Chris, question.
Oh, Chris, beg your pardon. Over online, Councillor Parkin.
Yeah, no, thank you. I suspect this ties into Councillor Dyer's question, but the slope 12, does that actually free up or increase the amount of airspace, or just move forward the ability to use the airspace that we already have?
So that's that's bringing forward construction of slope 12. So slope 12 and potentially even 13, which is a new idea, weren't meant to be built towards much later in the landfill life, but the opportunity is there to bring them forward, or start constructing them instead of building the asbestos cell at the moment. So we've just sort of done a little pivot to make sure we've got general airspace on hand rather than dedicated asbestos cell capacity. Yeah, so that's slope 12. That's the story of slope 12, really.
Just on the asbestos thing, when it first came to Hutt City rather than this committee, it was sort of sold as quite a big money maker in terms of the rates we charge for it and the capital outlay to actually create the cell. Just wondering if that equation sort of been taken into account. Delaying it, it was meant to sort of bring in an extra $1 million of revenue, I think, off the top of my head.
Right.
By doing the asbestos cell quicker.
Yeah. So, part of bringing forward the capital funding will enable us to do slope 12 and the asbestos cell. There are some limitations in terms of just constructability and basically people on the ground and the weather playing ball. At the moment, the weather's been really good. It's been quite a good long construction season. But what we've decided to do is package up the construction of the asbestos cell into the capital works contract that we're letting out. Well, the procurement process is underway at the moment. So then we'll have a price for that and some price certainty because costs have been escalating.
I'm assuming it's not that asbestos cell delay is not stopping us from receiving asbestos at the moment.
No, we still have a disposal area for asbestos. So, that's within the general site. Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Griffiths.
While we're talking asbestos, and thank you for that information. Wondering whether or not there's is there still that continuation of growth in that asbestos requirement? There must be a finite amount of asbestos coming out of buildings, or is it just a continuation? Will it just keep coming and coming?
I'm not sure. We don't have information on how much is out there. In terms of what comes to us, it seems relatively stable. I mean, I think we're going to see, and perhaps we're starting to see that now with a little bit less property development work. You'll see a little bit less demolition and a little bit less asbestos. So it's potentially the demand for disposal of asbestos will decline because it's very much linked to that activity. But it hasn't shown any shift. It's fairly static. I think the idea of building the asbestos cell at Silverstream is that it's a regional facility, really. So its design life is long and it's designed just to receive asbestos. So it's not over designed, and that doesn't need to have gas capture and things like that. But we can receive asbestos from throughout the region.
All right, thank you, everybody. I'll move that the committee receives and notes the report. The second of this, Mr. Griffiths. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against, declare that carried. Thank you. Well, I think that brings us to the last, one of the last items on the agenda, which is the work playground on page 36. Does anyone have a question about the forward work program?
Maybe we can include that review. I guess we come to the actual signature of that.
Happy to leave it as it's stated?
Yeah, it'll be.
Okay. All right, no further comments, I take it. So I move that the committee receives and notes the forward work program for 2024 attached as appendix 1 to the memorandum. All those in favour, and a seconder, please. Guppy. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against, no. Carried. Right, I think we're just on to our closing Karakia. Show that up on the screen. So feel free to join in with me. Unahia, Sapanui. Kia Watia, Kia Mama, Te Nāko, Te Nana, Te Wairua, Te Ara Tākatu. Ura, Rongo, Whakahiria, Aki, Te Ronga, Kia Watia, Kia Wātu, and Kia Watia. I declare the meeting closed at 10:31. Thank you all.